Hi,
Hey,
Cole.
what's
How are
up?
you?
I'm doing well. How are
Nothing
you?
much.
Oh
Good
my
to
God,
see
I'm so
you.
excited to see you.
Of course. I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't realize that the interview was now, which is why I look like this, and I'm in a studio.
No, this is
No, no,
amazing.
no. This is a
I mean,
dressing room.
we absolutely can reschedule the interview if you would prefer, but I think you look amazing.
I
And I
don't
mean,
mind. I can do this now. Thank
this
you.
is the thing that people want to see, really. At the end of the day, they want to,
Right.
get that little vibe of what it's like to actually be backstage.
Yeah.
Wait, is
Yeah.
this
And
your dressing
this is
room?
it. Yes, I share with Christy Altamar. She's not in at the moment.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, we're in a different city every day. So
Yeah.
currently I'm in Peoria, Illinois.
Cool. Well, I am currently in Springfield, Missouri, which is why
Yeah.
you're
It's
trying to
just
make the town place suites really pop. You do whatever you can.
yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. No, I sleep on a bus. So yeah.
What? I didn't know that.
It's a nice bus. It's a luxury like sleeper bus.
Right.
Yeah. So because we're in a different city every night, we travel overnight. We drive overnight to the day before that we were in, oh God, I don't even remember. Athens, Ohio. Yeah, it's just we're all over the place.
Okay, so for people who don't know what you're doing, what are you doing right now that puts you on a luxury bus and takes you to a new spot every night?
Yeah, so I am currently doing a 100 city tour, me as well as three other Broadway princesses from various shows. It's myself, Christy Altamar, who is Anastasia in Anastasia, Cindy Winters, who played Nala in The Lion King, and Annalisa Vanderpool, who played Belle and Beauty and the Beast, but was also Chelsea from That's So Raven and Raven's Home. And yeah, we celebrate, it's a show that celebrates all 12 princesses, plus like Meg and Anastasia and Nala are thrown in there too. Yeah, and so we just get to sing these classic Disney songs every night to various crowds of people, like ranging in size. Sometimes it's 1,700 or 2,500. So it's absolutely wild, but it's a lot of fun.
That bus schedule, it's something else, sleeping on the bus. Are you able to sleep on the bus? Because I'm not one. I had a really hard time sleeping on the bus. I also picked the bunk right over the rear wheels, which was rookie mistake.
That's okay. I also had a rough time in the beginning, just because I'm not used to that much motion, and like anytime we'd hit a curve, I'm also on the top bunk, so I'd be afraid I'd
Oh,
fall
you
out at any like point in time. But now I've gotten to the point where it's actually quite soothing, and I sleep very well. Like I slept a good
nice.
9 hours last night. I can't complain.
Come
Yeah,
on
it just took
now.
some time to adjust, but I got there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
first off, thank you for being here with us doing this little interview. So the craziest thing, excuse me, the agra plague is going around. I
Ugh,
think
I'm
the
so sorry.
craziest, it's okay. I'm on the mend, so, and I didn't miss any shows, which made me very
Good.
happy. I got lucky that there was like a two show, like a golden day. So
Yes.
I ended up not having to miss anything, which was fortunate. And of course, Angelina just never gets sick somehow. I don't know what her immune system's made of, but
Right, never.
whatever. That's fine.
Isn't it like oil of oregano? Doesn't she
Yeah,
swear by
essentially,
that?
yeah, it's mostly doTERRA.
If
Like
I
it's
remember correctly.
I think she's like 80%
Yes.
pear,
Yes, it's
20% doTERRA.
doTERRA.
Yeah. And then somewhere in there, there's an extra 10% of just legs that just like.
That is correct. Yep.
But what is crazy to me is that I've never had the opportunity. I've seen you do Aladdin so many times, and I hope that I've previously told you this, but I adored watching you in this show because I got to see you on opening night in the first national tour and obviously many times after that. But I have such a respect for your work, your groundedness. I don't know if that's not technically a word, but the grounded nature of the way that you work,
Yeah.
the honesty that you work from, and the fact that that's all great, but then you like sing and it's gross. It's so good. And the fact that I never got to be in that like top of act two scene in the palace and have you be the one storming on, I'm so upset about that. Never got to do it. Love watching you as Princess Jasmine. Never got to be there and get yelled at by you. That's all I'm looking for, you know? I need
Yeah,
very
never
little.
got to do that.
But it's I mean,
You
how
know,
did
you never know, Cole. I can do it.
you never know. That I think is a thing that people need to hear. You never know. With this business, that is one of the most important things to hear. You never know. you never know why the answer is yes or no. You never know what's going to happen. That is an unintentionally great takeaway already. But talking about Aladdin, like, how did your journey with Aladdin start? Like, how did it come to be? And I'm sure you've answered this a million times, but
Yeah.
if you'll indulge me.
My Aladdin journey is it was a very circuitous route to playing Jasmine, which I loved. So it's kind of a long story. I had the summer I graduated after college.
Okay.
My first audition out of school was for a show called The Untitled Prom Musical. And so, which eventually became the Prom musical. And I went to the audition, got through to final callbacks, and right before final callbacks, I sprained my ankle. And I, at that point, was like, well, can't go to the final callback. And I wrote in, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to make it. And they were like, oh, well, the director, Casey Nicola, would still like to hear you sing and act, I mean. I'm like, okay. Did the singing and acting, didn't get cast because I never danced in front of him. And then later that summer, I went in for him for Aladdin for a replacement and a Jasmine understudy. And I fell in the tap call, I remember.
Oh, no.
But I did everything else pretty well. But I remember when I went in for him, he said, hey, good to see you. And I was like, oh my gosh, you remembered me. That's cool. And I didn't book that either. So I had 3 auditions for Casey Nicola that I didn't book. And that was all in the summer. And then, like, the fall goes by. In January, I head to Miami to do a production of West Side Story. And as I'm landing, I had a call from my agent that says, hey, so we just got a call that Casey Nicola wants you to be in the ensemble of Aladdin. Of the Prom in the out-of-town tryout in Atlanta this summer. And I was like, what? And he was like, he remembered you from the other 3 auditions. He didn't need to see you again. So that was amazing. And I got to do Prom out of town. It was in the ensemble at that point, and it was a fantastic experience. And at the time we were in previews for the Prom, they were casting the national tour of Aladdin. And I remember I was like walking to meet people at a Mexican restaurant, and I passed Casey and his husband, Josh, outside of the theater. And Casey was like, hey, you're just in case like it takes a while for Prom to go, would you be interested in going on tour with Aladdin and maybe understudying Jasmine? And I was like, yeah, Casey Nicola, that sounds like a great idea. And he was like, cool. Let's just have an informal audition just so I can tell casting that I've seen you, so I can, sign off on you. And I was like, all right. So then the following Tuesday, I go into a studio with Casey Nicola, our associate music director, Meg Zervulis, and my dear friend, Kevin Solak, who was going to read with me. And I sang These Palace Walls, and he stopped me after the song. And he was like, great. So I think you could actually play the part of Jasmine. Would you mind going to New York for final callbacks in 10 days to do all this in front of the team? And my soul had left my body. And I was just like, yeah, yes. And he gave me a bunch of notes to work on and things to think about. I got like calls from him throughout the week that was like, make sure you wear something like shapely and form-fitting and like you look princess-like. Like I felt like he was rooting for me. And I went into that final callback wanting to prove that I could do it. I didn't need the part at all. I just wanted to prove that I could. And I flew in on a Monday, which is our day off. It was our last week of previews of the show. Oh no, I think it was our last run of the show. I gave the worst audition of my entire life for this other audition because I just didn't prepare for it. Like to the point where my sheet music was falling out of my hand. I didn't know the words. I was off key. Terrible audition. I go back to Aladdin, have the final callback in front of like Tom Schumacher and Ann Court and all of the Disney execs. I got to read with Adam Jacobs, who was doing Aladdin on Broadway at the time. And I threw a line at him in a certain way that totally threw him off guard. And he was like, I'm sorry, what's my line? Like, I totally rocked him, which I remember and everybody behind the table laughed at. And I was like, okay, this is fun. And I just remember feeling like I nailed it, that I had done what I had meant to do. I took all the notes that were required of me, and I felt really good about it. So then I left that audition. I went to get a drink with my roommate because I was flying back the next morning. And at the bar, I got a call from Casey Nicola. And he said, are you in a bar right now? And I was like, I've been pretty good this past week. Like, I just figured that I should blow off some steam. And he was like, well, have another drink, girl, because you're about to play Princess Jasmine. And I'm like fully weeping on the side of this, New York City. and he wanted to be the one to tell me it. That's how I got that part. And then I got to make my Broadway debut with it because 9 months later, I get another call from Casey that says, hey, so I don't know what your plan is, but we're actually looking to take the prom to Broadway. But before we do, we want to do some rewrites, and we've done some recasting, and we want you to play Alyssa Green on Broadway. And I again, short circuit. I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, but we're going to do another workshop in January. So we don't want to rewrite it without you there. So I've already talked about it with Disney. And what's going to happen is you and Courtney Reed are going to switch places, and she's going to go to the national tour and you're going to go to Broadway so that you can do the workshop of prom during the day and do Jasmine at night. So in the same phone call, I learned that I was making my Broadway debut and was going to originate a role in Casey McCalla everything. And I just love him and adore him. And he's been nothing but wonderful. Yeah.
Come on.
That's my long story.
Whoa. I'm like flush over here. Like I got calls to do these roles. I'm like, whoo, what's happening? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It was pretty crazy. But
that's one of those situations I feel like
Disney magic.
It's Disney magic. They're really, I mean, it's a real thing. So we unintentionally have now touched on you never know. And as that's apparently the theme here. That's the theme of this episode. You never know. Because to look at your resume, to look at the way that it looks, your Wikipedia page, if you will, is your, well, I go to college at Michigan University or UIsh, and then go blue. I'm not supposed to say that because I went to CCM, but I don't care.
It's okay.
Yeah,
go whatever. Bearcats. It's fine. I don't care either.
Yeah,
I know. I don't. It's.
But it looks like, on paper. I feel like when you look at people's it's the Instagram effect, right? You go, oh well, they got into this great college, and then they got out of college, and they were the princess on this tour, and then they immediately went to Broadway and did that, and then they went to Broadway and did this, and then they did, and you're like, no, y'all, you don't understand. You never know how this is going to happen. That's such a great story. So with respect to college, is that something that you recommend or don't recommend, or to each their own? So I've gotten some pretty different answers on
that. I personally believe it is choose your own adventure. I think there is a great lie says that you have to go to a conservative or one of the elite musical theater colleges in order to make it on Broadway. And I say that's absolute bullshit.
Of course.
I think it matters how hard you are willing to work for your dream, and it matters how much effort you put into it. The problem with our industry is that it is a pay-to-play industry. It's so expensive to pursue a career in the arts. And I would like to see more scholarship programs that, are able to access more underfunded communities and underprivileged communities. The hard part about that is that it really starts from grade school, right? A lot of those people come from places where they were able to pay for training. They were able to take a certain amount of dance classes. They were able to take amounts of voice lessons and acting classes. And that's just simply not accessible to everyone. So I think it's bullshit. And I also think I'm not saying I loved going to college. Don't get me wrong. I loved the University of Michigan. I learned a lot there. But I have plenty of friends who did not go to school and who are massive stars now and really learned by watching movies, by going on YouTube and imitating singers and taking dance class and learning from friends and getting together and writing plays and writing sketches. And I think the most important thing is to keep your creative gears turning in whatever way that is. And then hopefully you meet people, but you have to throw yourself into the work, because I do believe in the power of manifesting your own future. And it doesn't mean that you get all of the best teachers or all of the best clothes for auditions, or you're in the right place at the right time. A lot of it, you're in the right place at the right time, but it's so much more about how hard you're willing to work. And if you have the tenacity to just stick it out. And also I would say, if you surround yourself with people who are also creative and to challenge you, I would recommend getting a mentor if you can. Find somebody in this industry who does exactly what you do. There's so many different ways to get to where you want to be that it's really a waste of time to figure out, to think that there's only one way to do it. frankly. I heard this meditation teacher once said, uh, what you want to do, what you should be doing is put your destination into the GPS and let the universe take care of the rest, which I love.
I like that. That's amazing.
They get really clear on what it is that you want, work really hard at it, and have fun. Christy Altamar wants to say something.
Christy.
Is that Colt Paratus?
Yeah, this is Colt Paratus. You
It
know
is.
Colt?
Hello,
Yeah, of
Christy.
course.
Oh, I'm doing his show right now.
Oh my God, sorry. Hi,
That's
Colt.
why I was like, hey, Christy. And then I was like,
I just
oh,
want to
no.
say I agree with every single thing that you
Right? 100%. Well, Christy.
She couldn't hear me. My headphones were in.
Oh, okay.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm sorry.
no.
There's like a
Just
little
hang out.
delay sometimes. What I said we'd love to have you do one of these interviews at some point because I'm sure people would love to hear from you.
Yes,
okay.
yes, absolutely. And what you were doing, I was like, are you teaching like a master class? This is amazing advice.
To be
Okay,
fair,
that is all. I was just
he
wanted
kind
to
of is. So
concur. All of this is awesome. Bye.
I love that. What I was going to say is the reason that we actually started this in the first place has to do with the Broadway studio, which is where this is and what this is. And it was because we got tired of going and doing these master classes, and you get there and we always save time for a Q&A, and because this may be the only time that Broadway performers get to work with these kids, and somebody would inevitably ask, hey, how do I get to where you are? If you had one piece of advice, what would it be? And we would always say, train. Just train however you can. Find all of the information you can. Find something that inspires you and let it burn you from the inside out like a phoenix. Like just keep burning up and get back up. Burn down,
I love
get back
that.
up. And you see them, they light up and they go, oh my gosh, where do I do that? And you go, are you rich? Because if not,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I know that where I came from, like I didn't have that money. I got very lucky that I got into a magnet program just by happenstance, trying to get out of playing basketball. So I had Metallica shirts and Jinkos and chains, Doc Martens and blue hair. And so I wasn't getting picked first for basketball. And I just like snuck out. And the only way to sneak out was to go to this audition for the magnet program. So I just like, you fall into these things, and I got lucky enough to go there, and my voice hadn't changed, and I sang America the Beautiful a cappella because I didn't know what accompaniment was. I couldn't pronounce it. I still can barely spell it.
Right.
Like, wasn't happening, but I ended up getting in, and then this whole thing unfolded. But even so, I remember they would take a New York trip every year. There was a group, the company, that would take a trip to New York, and they go see Broadway shows, and it cost $500. I didn't have $500. I remember the first time that I told my mom, like, hey, I got into this group and they're going to go on this trip. And she was like, baby, I'm sorry, you can't go. Like, we don't have that money. And that said, ended up being, I got sponsored. I was able to go, and it was those kind of things. But that's why we built the Broadway studio, and why we have not just these interviews and not just this channel here on YouTube, but specifically all of these classes available for people so that they can study, so that they have access to us, to these master classes that otherwise they couldn't afford, So
Absolutely.
I'm right there with you. That is hands down number one. The most important thing is giving access to people who don't have it, because I was one step away from not having that access. And this is not just my whole professional life. Like, I wouldn't have met her without this. And like, come on, no. So yeah, bringing access to people is hugely important. I love that. I love that that's something that you're championing. Okay, so speaking of getting into performing, how did you get into performing? How did that start up for you? What was that? Since we never know where the journey starts or ends, like let's see where yours started.
Well, my parents were professional ballroom dancers, so I grew up watching.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know, random, right? Yeah, they were just like casual U.S. champions for a bit. Yeah.
I need video
So I
footage of
would.
this.
I wish I had more video, but it's all like on
Yeah,
VHSs that
grainy
like were
VHS
destroyed.
carved in
Yeah.
stone. It was a whole thing. Classic.
Yeah, ridiculous. No, but yeah, so I grew up in a ballroom. Like I was either in their dance studio or I was at a competition, and I would spend so much time watching dance. And I would like go around with my friends and we'd collect rhinestones and fill them up in little cups and see who at the end of the day collected the most amount of rhinestones. So I would do that. Uh, and I had the bug watching them dance when I was in third grade. My mom put me in ballet class for the discipline of it. Well, wait, I skipped a major part. I caught the bug of acting and specifically musical theater when I was 5 years old because I saw the Broadway production of Cats. It was my first Broadway show, and my mom took me, and I was sitting on her lap, and I was entranced. Cassandra the brown cat at one point crawled down the aisle, and she sat right next to on my mom's chair and looked up at me, and I was sitting on her lap. And I looked down at her and I went, "Good kitty!" And I started petting her. And she just nuzzled into me like a magical actress that she was. And I like got the bug. And I asked my mom for the VHS of Cats, the digicapture, because they filmed it.
Yeah.
And I watched it every day for a year. I kid you not. I watched it every day, and every day I would pretend to be a different cat. I taught myself the choreography. And basically I was training to be a swing, truly. Like every day I'd play a different cat and I would do their track. I loved it so much. So I had that. And then I was put into ballet when I was in third grade. But I was in my tomboy phase and didn't want to do it exactly. And I was bad at first because, of course, everybody's bad at ballet because that's what you are. But then I was older. I could only afford one class a week. But as I got older, I started to show some promise, and the amazing, wonderful teacher or mentor at my dance studio, she ran the place, sat my mother down and asked about our financial situation and told my mother how much she sees in me, and she offered to give me a full scholarship for the remainder of my time. And so every summer she would sit me down and say, "What's your dream schedule? What's your dream?" And so I got to take like 9 to 10 dance classes a week because of that woman. So it goes right back to our accessibility thing that like I would not be where I am today if without the generosity of my incredible teacher and mentor.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was like my dancing 100% that got me into colleges. I am positive of it. Because when I got into college, I was a dancer actor. Like I didn't have the tools to sing because we couldn't afford voice lessons.
Right.
So, but I knew how to dance. I could turn and jump and shine like a freaking Haley's Comet.
So that's a whole other realm that I would love to touch on, which is like, the old joke, or not old joke, I guess new joke, the joke, dancer first, like that whole ironic joke of that. Yes, you may have come up against, you didn't have voice lessons. We didn't have money for voice lessons. And I remember at that performing arts high school, all the other students had private voice lessons. Like all the other people that were like working their way up in the shows and becoming the stars at the school, they all went to voice lessons with this one teacher. And I saved up my lunch money, and because I would usually pay my lunch money to other people to teach me dance during lunch.
Wow.
Because I started so late.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So, but I saved up, and finally I went to one, and it was much like your first ballet class, so hard that I was like, I don't understand any of this. This costs so much money. Like, what? I don't know how to do this. And then I got overwhelmed and I just didn't go back. So what would you say to someone who feels like, well, this is my thing, but I love musical theater, but I'm just a dancer. I love musical theater, but I'm just a singer. Like I can't do these other things. What would you say to them?
Be more imaginative. Trust yourself. I mean, like, You know, it's so funny. I think the pandemic changed my perspective a lot in this arena. And think it changed a lot for a lot of us because in the arts, our entire way of living was gone, right? So we couldn't do what we were meant to do, what we told ourselves that we were destined to do.
Right.
And we all found different skills. And I think the problem is people are afraid of being bad first. We're afraid of failing so much that we don't try. But I really, really, really do believe that, yes, some people are more naturally inclined to certain gifts, 100%. Is it easier for some to sing? Absolutely. Is it easier for some to throw a football? 100%. I have terrible aim. That is not my gift whatsoever. But you bet your ass if I worked, 12 hours a day like these professionals do, I get really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much of it is just trying and letting yourself be bad. So if there is something that you really want to do, but you can't imagine how you'd even get there, you have to sink into the bad. You have to sink into the failure because there's always greatness on the other side of failure. That's it.
Hard work beats talent every day.
Makes me sad when I hear my friends say, "Oh, I could never do that. That's not my thing. I don't want to do that." Yeah, it really does.
At the end of the day,
Work and kindness, I would say, go like very far.
yes.
And are you willing to play?
I like the idea of play. I think it's something that, especially as we become more veteran performers, we lose a little bit. And I'm not trying to, actually, I shouldn't speak for in a generalization like that, but that's something that I've found that I have to remind myself sometimes, and it depends on the role, obviously, but like with Kasim, I don't feel like you ever have to remember to play because it's pretty much all you're doing. But with certain parts of this business, not just being on stage, like it's not just playing when you're there, but playing with your auditions, with your characters, with your classes, with yourself as an artist, and having
Yes.
that concept kind of floating around more, I think would be beneficial to all of us, not just people who are trying to get here, but people who are already working. You touched on something. You said there was kind of a pivotal moment, and that was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, have there been any specific like pivotal moments in your career that changed kind of the way that you viewed this art form? And if not, that is also a totally valid answer. No is a complete sentence, right?
Yeah, it is. It is a complete sentence. Um, I think I don't know if there are moments. I think it's a
Like a season.
yeah, I would say it's a season, and I would say that like I've learned so much from every single person I've come into contact with, like good or bad. I will say that I learned the beauty of collaboration and letting your ego go at the door working on the prompt because everybody in that room was more focused on how do we tell the best story than how am I coming off best. I learned in another show that I did, which I will not name, that business matters. That at the end of the line, some producers will just care about their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll leave it at that. And I've learned that that it's like 10% show and 90% business, and you have to learn how to operate that. I learned, God, I feel like I'm in a place in my life now where I feel so much more willing to play and excited to play. But I think I had to go through so much worrying about what other people thought of me first and get tired of the stories I was telling myself in my head. And I always felt those moments. Like you always feel those moments, like in the beauty of doing a show 8 times a week is you feel when like the one show a week where you're like really in the pocket and you're like, how do I do that again? How do I get there? The problem is trying to recreate.
Yeah, chasing
exactly
that dragon is
chasing
a
that
dangerous game.
It's not going to work. It is not going to work. The hardest part is moving into flow. How do I let where I'm at right now influence where I'm going to be today? The hard part about that is you have to do so much work leading up to it You have to know your character, like all the beat work, all of the writing down, all of the, throwing paint at the wall, seeing what sticks in order to feel so at ease and in your body to where you can play. But I know play when I saw it. And the first time I really saw it was every night on stage with Beth Level and Brooks Eshmanskis. They know how to play. They are exactly the people I wanted to be. And I feel like I'm just now tapping into that. I feel like I'm just now tapping into letting today be today. And I'm not judging myself for not being where I am. I'm learning how to listen better than I've ever have before. And like you hear all the time that acting is reacting.
Right.
But it's one thing to be like, I'm going to listen. Yeah. I'm not listening. All I'm thinking is I'm going to listen. I'm not actually taking you in.
As soon as you stop talking, I'm going to listen.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like,
you're going to listen to me because I'm going to say this so good because I've been listening so good.
Right. And it's like humans don't do that. And also humans don't take a bait and think and then say, we just go.
Yeah.
So just go. So I'm learning. I feel like I'm shifting from overthinking to like moving into flow. And it's not in any way a linear process. I am sure that I will go back to I'm about to start rehearsals for Hercules. I am sure that I will have shows there where I am like, I don't know what that crap was, but it wasn't acting,
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Like, you don't know. I will say one moment I did have was actually with the director of Hercules, Lear de Bessonet, who did the Into the Woods revival. She's amazing. I love her. I honor her. We were doing a workshop of Hercules, and she pulled me aside after rehearsal one day when I feel like I was like struggling to find Meg. And she told me, she was like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to be funny. You don't have to set people up for a joke. You don't have to get the jokes. You don't have to try at all. She's like, I don't want you to get pulled into whatever you think you should be doing as Meg. I want you to just say the words and think the thoughts. And I was so like caught up and like I like written so many notes over all of my, my script pages, like what this beat should be and what everything should be. And I had to trust myself and throw it away and just drop it. And it was when I did that I'm sure that was the moment she was like, oh, okay, she can do the part now.
Got it.
But before that, I didn't trust that I had it. I was trying to please. Oh, God, this is another thing. If your art comes from a place of servicing others, it's not art. It's just people pleasing. And that is a lesson that I feel like, also a lesson that I feel like I'm just learning now and getting to understand now.
We talk about that. We call it the show off performer versus the sharing performer. When you come in and you say, look at these things that I can do, what you're saying is, hey, this is good, right? Like,
yeah.
you think this is good enough, right?
Oh,
but when you come in and you want to share a story, because I believe that all artists, but I, again, will do my best to stick to this medium, but I believe that as artists, we are storytellers. That's the whole thing. So how do we tell the story? And as you said with Prom, as clearly and concisely as possible. Trim the fat, no extraneous things, just so the story that is necessary to be told gets told. Yeah. How do we do that as each individual performer? How do we not, chew up all the scenery if it's not servicing the product, right? It's so tempting to take that moment as this makes me better. Like, the audience, the love from the audience means I'm better. And you're like, no, story.
Yeah.
Did what you're saying is such a mammoth way of looking at things. Just say the line.
The story. We're not the star. We're not the star. The playwright is.
The story.
That's true.
It's about the story.
It. It's about the story. Casey Nicholaw always says that too. He goes, just because you can get the laugh doesn't mean you should.
Hey, love that.
Concise
Absolutely
and
enjoy that.
That's it. Yeah. And it's something I remind myself a lot as I found that I'm funny because I wasn't always funny on stage, but now I get to be funny and I'm like, oh, let's go. And I'm like, nope, reel it back, McCalla, reel back the clown.
It's a hard thing though. It's a hard thing also. Like, I have so much respect for DDR, Dondero Rivera.
Oh, I love
Like,
him so
I
much.
think he is, as Iago, I think he is one of the perfect performances that I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see a way it can be improved upon.
Nope.
I look at it and I go, how did you do this? And I love it so much, but there's also so many, knowing how funny he has so many other opportunities that he could just steal everything and just be like, I'm going to do this. And now you're going to pay attention to me here. And
Right.
instead, if you watch him, he's letting a lot of things just be for him.
Yep.
I'm guessing he's laughing at himself inside throughout the show.
100%.
I find that that's been my way of coping with being that clown. Like, I'm very fortunate that Ange laughs at my jokes. Ange thinks, not all of them, not most of them, to be fair, but like
Nobody's
I got a
joke is
60-40 split here, and I'm pretty 51-49, and I'm teetering, so I'm happy. But what I found on stage, because she early on was like, you have to share that. You have to share that part of you. And I was like, no, this is just for you. Like, I'm tough. Look at these eyebrows. I'm tough. Like this
You
is
can be tough and funny.
yeah.
That's allowed.
Well, I didn't at the time realize that. And
Yeah.
she finally said, you have to be effective and to do the things that you want to do in your career and in your life, you have to share that who you really are. And I overcorrected. And I find that I still occasionally overcorrect when you're on stage sometimes and you do that and you're like, I'm gonna ham it up because they love me. I'm great.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
you go in, and what I've found in this, like, third go around with Kasim is I have so many jokes in the show that are just mine. Nobody would ever know what they are. Nobody would ever think, maybe Cassidy Stoner, but nobody else would think they were. And
Right.
I feel like that has been my way of dealing with that. But how do you reel yourself back when you find yourself in that moment of hamming it up?
Go back to the truth of the moment. Go back to, why am I saying this? Ask yourself the question, why are you saying this? I think so it's just like, you got to scrap and then start over.
Cool.
Go back to asking for the salt, not the joke, the laugh. Like, you've heard that old,
Yeah.
the Lunt-Fontaine story. The Lunts, classic.
You want to tell it though? Because they may not have.
Sure. There's a famous acting couple. They're doing this play, and the husband, they're at breakfast, and the husband's supposed to ask to pass the salt. And I think the concept is that they were a couple that was like on the outs, and they were fighting with each other. And he asked for the salt, and every night it would get a laugh. And it would get a laugh, and it would get a laugh, and it would get a laugh, until all of a sudden it didn't get laughs anymore. And then he kept trying it different ways, and he got so in his head about this one line. He's like, why aren't they laughing at me? Why aren't they laughing at me? And his wife finally went, darling, you're not asking for the salt. You're asking for the laugh. That's why. And the second he realized that and went back to, okay, what am I doing in this moment? He got the laugh again. You just got to go back to the truth. That's all.
Izzy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
That was
I appreciate
absolutely
you.
brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your time and your love and your heart. You rock. I love that we've slowly moved around as I'm guessing.
I know. I'm
everybody's
just
getting
like,
ready for the show, and I
everybody's getting
really
ready.
appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries.
Go have a beautiful show. Hopefully,
Thank you.
I will see you around, and I cannot wait for the time when we finally do get to be on stage together.
Yes.
It's going to be a trip.
It'll be wonderful. Thank you, Colt.
Have a beautiful
Appreciate
show.
You. Thanks. See you later.